Hey guys, this is Aaron with Elite Watersports down here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Today we're gonna learn how to replace some valves on an older kite. Seems like all the valves are going out on this kite. What we're gonna do is inspect it first. So what we wanna do is actually go ahead and pump it up like you would normally do. Now if you notice, it's not holding air right away, okay? Now I need to see which way the leak is, okay? So what I'll do is just step right here. I'll pump it up. Still has a leak on that side. Okay, it's still leaking, all right? So now I know that it's gotta be one of these valves, okay? So if I'm able to shut off this side of the kite, I know that all the valves on that side will be in good working order. I did the same thing on this side, so I know the problem is centralized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking apart the kite. I'll push the valve through. Sometimes the kite's left in a hot car, and those valves will delaminate from the actual bladder itself. These kites are kind of designed sort of like a bike tire, where you'll have a bladder inside of a chamber. You fill that bladder up, and the bladder isn't really the structure part of it, it's the actual canvas. The bladders are pretty fragile. So we'll open up this zipper, and notice that I kind of laid out the leading edge seam flat like this. And you can see this bladder is super fragile and thin. And now we can see our problem right away. This valve is completely off. Just throw that to the side. We have this kind of crazy clip here. We'll have to pop this clip off, both sides. Put these to the side. Pull the tube off. Push the valve through. Okay, like I said earlier, make sure that the leading edge seam is flat, and I'll start pulling the valve or the bladder out. All right, so I want to expose these three valves and see what's going on with them. See this one, it's pretty good still. It's not delaminated. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, so I got the bladder out of the kite right now, and I'm looking at it, and I see that the valves, you know, they need to be replaced. And the actual valve that goes from the leading edge to the strut connected with this tube, this seems to be fine. There's no veins kind of protruding from the inside going to the outside of the valve. So I think it's safe to invest in a dump valve and a fill valve on this one. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab all my parts, and we'll start with the dump valve first. We sell these here at the shop. We can send it anywhere for you. What I'm gonna do is start off with the alcohol swab. Alcohol swab the area. Now I want it to dry, and because we're videotaping right now, I'll just dry it off a little bit, my shirt. I'm gonna stick a board underneath, or maybe you're at the beach and you don't have these capabilities, you can just put it on your knee. You'll hold it tight. Now here's the tricky part, okay? You'll see that this valve opens up only one way, okay? You'll look back on your kite and see that the Velcro closures like that. So you're gonna want this valve to sit kind of like this, so you can open it and then close it. Same with the fill valve. The fill valve is going to sit this way on the bladder. So if you notice, the Velcro opens this way. So you want it to open the same way. All right, so I'll place this on my knee. The alcohol has dried. I've had these sit in the sun for a little while to make sure that they're warmed up. I'll peel it. I know that the valve needs to flip inward. Stretch it out a little bit, find the hole, lay it on, start squeegeeing it out. All right, so we just got done installing our valve on our bladder. I'm gonna basically press these down, press it down all which way, kind of squeegeeing out all the air bubbles, all right? And then I'll go ahead and close the valve and I'll move on to the next one. It's always a good idea to maybe have a couple of these in your travel kit so that, you know, you could be out on some random island or some vacation out there and develop a leak, and now you're prepared for it by simply having these in your travel bag. It's also good to have like some repair tape for any pinholes or maybe scratches on the leading edge. At least you can finish your vacation and then get it professionally repaired when you get back. Now, this original valve was a ball valve. It actually has a little teeny ball that was floating around in there, and when you fill it up, the ball actually closes so that the air can't escape. We've lost that ball. It's probably somewhere in the leading edge. Not super important that you find it. If you can, that's good. But we're actually replacing it with a flapper valve. Look at the bottom of it. So we're replacing it with a flapper valve, so we have to remove some of the bladder. So I'll cut a little hole, and now it's ready to be replaced. So remember, the flap needs to go this way. So I'll stretch it out, lay it down, squeegee the air out. So we just got done installing both of our valves. We're going to remove the board or whatever we're using. It kind of looks like this. I'll close this valve, and now I got to reinstall it into the leading edge. You can see that the leading edge is kind of crunched up. What I'll do is I'll grab maybe a little bit further back and start pulling it in. I don't want to stuff it in there, okay? Or else I might get some twists or wrinkles. Just kind of pull it in there. And then you'll get to the point where you do have to stuff it in, but at least I'm taking necessary steps to maybe pull that bladder in. I can even go over here and start working it in. And then find the valve, poke it through. I'll have to remove this, and I can just use the old one. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. This one looks just fine. I'll close that off. You'll work on the next one. This is the OEM. Sometimes you have a little trouble pulling this through. You want to be fragile with it. You don't want to yank on it too much. There it goes, pops through. Put a little spit on it. Work the tube back over top. Find the deflate valve. Pull the deflate valve through. Now lay everything flat. Lay the bladder in there really nicely. Now here's sometimes where people go wrong. It has a little flap to protect the bladder from the zipper. You want to make sure that flap is down flat, and then make sure that you seat the zipper all the way up into this little neoprene elastic piece. Make sure it's covered. Now you don't have any holes in your canopy when it's rubbing. Stretch it all out. Put these, little collar on here. Sometimes I can get this with just my hands. If I can't, then I use a little bit, some pliers. Okay, it clipped in. It's good to go. So let's test it out. Okay, so we just got done installing our valves. We reattached the tube that connects the strut to the leading edge. Pull both valves through, dump in and inflate. Now it's time to test it. Grab the right adapter, going with the 9mm inflate, and now I'm starting to pump it up. Okay, I'm gonna stop right about halfway. And I want to make sure that the bladder is sitting inside the leading edge properly, so I'll work it around. Nice and slow. Make sure there's no kinks in it. That looks fine. Bring it up to 9 psi. Cap it off. And then for testing purposes, I'm going to close off the valve. Okay, so just a recap of what we did. We just replaced the inflate and the dump valve. Some key things here is definitely a controlled environment. Normally we're inside, we have a nice workshop, but I wanted to show you that you can do this on the fly as long as maybe you have some nice clean grass and not a lot of wind. You definitely don't want any sand or debris or anything attracted to that bladder as you're installing it. That could lead to further issues down the road. But as you see, it's still holding air. It's been about an hour now. So I'm gonna go ahead and deflate it, pack it up, and then send it back to the customer. All right guys, this is Aaron with Elite Watersports.